can't remember if it was on a tweet. I mean, there's days where I feel like air traffic controller. I mean, I got the phone so the kids can see me, and then I got the iPad with the grid screen, and then the laptop, and then we have the projector screen. And that's literally everything for hybrid teaching. And I'm just like, this is so exhausting.
It's starter pack, and you're like, wow. Like, that's just to get started. Remember when they were like, if you want a second monitor, maybe get it. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I'll need it. Now we're like, so the fourth monitor mounts on the right, right? Right. And then if I need a second pair, I've literally had 2 pairs of AirPods, like one with the computer, like one, and I'm like, hold on. And then I look stupid. I'm like, hold on. I look like a back, like of a TV set. Like, guys, hear me? Martha, oh, she says, oh, you have a let me check the slides. Hold on. I'm like, this is stupid. It's Spanish one. Like, it's not that deep.
I know. And then it's like, if I'm not moving fast enough, like I'll be like, Profe, you didn't send me this yet. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it. Okay.
Can I have a second? Right. What if I send my emails like that? Kia, you haven't done your late work yet. Can you, you know, like, it would be irritating, wouldn't it, students?
Oh my goodness.
We got our venting out.
Yes. Oh man.
Well, welcome everybody. I was telling Kia a second ago, we've got some repeat attenders. Hey-o. So like I said, like, y'all are stuck with me. If you think we aren't friends, I will be you're wrong, first of all, and I will be finding you like, oh my God, look, Martha. Like, you're socially obligated to hang out with me now, because it's been like so fun. Kelly Sita, you were already socially obligated. Kia, you were already stuck. But like our repeat attenders, yeah, like it's been so fun to see familiar faces, and I think it's helped. It helps me being selfish. It's helped me be comfortable. You know, like kind of we're talking about not super easy things to talk about necessarily. I don't know. The easy things are like games and how to make a quiz, like safe, right? Safe. Right. And then we get in these other things, and it's like, oh, don't ask me about that. But I think those are the most important things. So welcome. If you haven't been, my name is Meredith White. I teach just outside of Atlanta in Gwinnett County. We have been hybrid all year. Hence I did the Zoom touch-up appearance thing, because I had like and I think it's working, because I had like a back.
It does work.
I was like, it works. So
I use it too.
If I'm very soft, like if it's like, she's a little hazy, it's because I turned it up because I'm a little tired. Because we've had roomies and zoomies all year, and today was like finals for the third quarter. So we had to do, Kia, like you were just saying, we had to do report cards and report card comments, and like this report card doesn't average with anything. It's like a standalone transcript number. Ugh. So all the emails, all the things, secretly they have like another 2 weeks, but we don't tell them that. And so it's just been exhausting, but I'm incredibly grateful to be here. We don't have school tomorrow. So,
oh, nice.
I know. Woo! Could give you all the energy. And obviously we're excited to host Kia. Kia's like been somebody that I've followed for a long time, and we've been in person. We'll both get busy, you know, at ACTFL. It's like, hey, how are you? You know, whatever, kind of quick touch base. But, you're going to see, I'm going to drop lots of links in the chat, because we now, thanks to my planning period today and kids just taking tests, doing computer school, we now have a wakelet for every separate chat. So any links that have been dropped, any links that have been dropped in the chat for each webinar, I went through each chat file and copy and pasted each link into like any link anybody shared into like a wakelet board. So any resources shared, I will put there as well. And that'll be housed at the same place. So if you're watching it back, or you're sharing with somebody, or you just don't feel like having 74 tabs open, imagine if you just feel like not being that way for once, I always do, have 74 tabs open, then you can just refer to that later and not worry about, you know, looking up everything or finding everything. So we'll do that for you. In the chat, if you could, tell us where you find yourself these days, what you're teaching, or what your affiliation with languages or language teaching is. And Kia, I'll let you tell us where you are these days, what you're up to. I know you're about to move tomorrow, so you're very busy, but, and then we'll rock and roll from there.
All right, cool. So hey, everybody. It's so good to see you all face to face. So I teach in Chicago. I teach Spanish. I've been teaching for about 15 years. I started at the high school level, and then I decided, hey, let's go to elementary. I don't recommend it. It was a very interesting transition, but eventually I kind of fell into it. So then after elementary, I decided to transition middle school, and I've been middle school ever since, 5th through 8th grade, but I currently teach 5th and 6th grade. What else can I share with you all? I'm also on a number of different boards right now. I'm the regional director for my state language, one of the regional directors for my state language organization. So that is a new role for me that I'm settling into. We've got some things coming up. And I'm also on the language learner literature advisory board as well. And we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that as far as that goes with inclusivity and non-biases and things like that when it comes to books. And I think that's about it.
Dang, you're busy. See, when we say things like that,
Yes.
like this, it's like, and I don't have hobbies. You know, it's like little this, little that, not much of a life. And then I can feel like my husband, where he's like doing another thing. Yep. Thursdays we do the bye, and I just close.
Right.
Whatever. Like, keep your silent resentment in the other room. No, I'm kidding. He's wonderful. But yeah, it's hard you do a lot, and it's hard to do a lot and feel like you have your hand in a number of different like areas and be teaching. Like, there's a reason people are like, man, I'm tired. Like, I want to get involved at this other level, and they move out of the classroom or whatever. So when you do it at the same time, it's a lot. It's a lot. It is. Yeah.
It is so much. Yeah.
Do you see any parallels between, we'll jump right in, between like ICFL board and, I'm going to do it in the wrong order too, language literature. Learner literature language. Listen, LLLAB. I know it's 3
Yes.
L's.
3 L's.
Lab. God. Do you see any parallels between those two boards? I've never been on a state board, but I imagine they're kind of like the regional ones, or do you see any like just similarities?
I will say the similarities that I do see is, the mission statements, in terms of making sure that not only are we reaching all students, but also making sure that we are reaching all teachers. I know with my current role in the state board right now, and I'm kind of really, well, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm co-leading an initiative to set up affinity groups for our state language organization, and really just to make sure that we are bridging the gap, being more inclusive, and including every teacher, no matter race, no matter color, and so forth, because that's been the challenge lately. One of the challenges, I would say, just like with the state board. So I'm very happy that everybody on the state board is on board with that, because this is my first year in, and I'm the newbie, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, so I'm very happy that everybody is on board with that. As far as the language learner literature advisory board, it's such a fun board, a fun group of people just to be able to work with. There are a lot of different perspectives, but again, the mission is the same, of just making sure that we not only are, making suggestions on equitable material for students when it comes to the language, I can't even think of, what word am I trying to say, you all, when it comes to the readers, and just, bringing awareness to a lot of different teachers, and making sure that, the libraries that we have in our current classrooms are equitable, are inclusive, and are represented with all different types of people in the best way, in the best, most appropriate way. So again, both boards they have the same mission with being inclusive, but again, there's, 2 different roles there.
Yeah.
two different roles. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I know we have this conversation about like professional development a lot, and people will argue, rightfully, right? Like I get it about professional development and say, that there needs to, for example, if you're on the ICTFL board, as you are, and you're going to go to the ICTFL conference and you're going to pay, like you have to pay registration, you have to pay whatever, you have to pay to present. And a lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't have to pay whatever. But the boards do other things, like it's so hard to be like, yes, but also, and so I frequently reflect on that pay to play mindset. Like, yes, they have bills to pay, but also there should be high quality professional development available to be received from and given to all kinds of teachers all over the place, whether you're department of 30 or department of 1 or whatever. And it sounds like you guys have some cool, like some initiatives that are just increasing that access, which is really nice. Access to,
Yes.
Professional development, which so many times teaching is so social and it's so isolating at the same time. Like you're surrounded by people on stage basically all day. And at the same time, it can be like, goodbye, door closed. You never talk to anybody. Nobody shares, or
Right.
the worst, people are rude or toxic, and education's so weird.
Yeah.
What do you find for the language learner literature? I think I did it. Advisory boards specifically, and I popped the link in the chat. What do you see? What's the function of that particular board?
So the function of that board is that we provide book reviews. So the way it's set up, we're paired with another board member and we have a list of books that we're reading. So for example, right now I'm reading, I'm actually co-paired with two other board members, and we're reading books in Spanish. And so what we do, we read the books, we talk about, the content, what we see, and we have a rubric that we do follow, it was actually taken from, I don't want to say taken from, but adopted, we'll use that word, adopted from the learningforjustice.org. And so we were able to, tailor make it in terms of making sure that we had, everything on there that we wanted as far as, gender, race, culture. What else is on there? There's a few other things that are on there as well. And so we review the book. And the thing about it that's really interesting is that we have to continue to keep in mind that we are merely offering our feedback. Right. Because the reviews are posted on the website, and then you'll also see access to the reviews on our Instagram page as well. So it's really, this is our feedback about the book. You can read our review, and anytime a small group or either a pair like completes the review, we always bring it back to the entire board, and everybody looks at it and we discuss it. So there's a lot involved in that process. And with that, sometimes, things might get a little dicey because everybody's got,
I was going to ask, like, what happens if you disagree?
Right. It's really interesting because it's like, well, no, I don't think it's meant to be read like that. Well, what do you mean? And, but I will say, with the group that I am currently with right now, we're able to, take a step back if we need to, where it's just like, okay, and somebody always has a different perspective, like a fresh perspective as well. And that's what's so cool about being with the group. And so it's really a matter of, hey, this is the information that we're providing you with. Here's our review. And you can choose, if you want the book in your library, that's fine. And if you don't, then that's fine too, Sometimes we do get feedback from different authors of books that we have reviewed. And, depending on the response, it can be a little, okay, what do we do with this one? Or it can be, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you all mean. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make some changes. So It's definitely really good. This is our first year. And it's been great. Things are still a work in progress, but I've been learning a lot. Because I feel as if when you are placed, and it doesn't really matter which type of role, but if you're placed in a certain role and you've received a specific amount of information about that role and or either more education on that subject, it's like you are now held accountable for that.
Right.
You're held accountable for that. It's like if you're gonna talk the talk, you gotta like walk the walk here. So, and lots of times I do think about that, when I hear different perspectives and I'm like, I didn't really think of it that way. Okay. And then I go back to my classroom and I, kind of think about some things.
Yeah.
And just kind of adjust. So it's an incredible role to be in. And, I'm truly thankful for it and incredible group of people to work with. So yeah.
I mean, literally, like when I clicked on the About Us, I was like, oh my God, this is like an all-star team. Like I was like, oh, they've got Kia and Ben. And I mean, I was like, oh my God, but incredibly, I mean, like not like I'm like fangirl a little bit over the site, but you'd think I'd know the words in the right order by now, but I don't.
It's okay.
Like lab. And then I keep getting the website wrong. Anyway, I forget the we are, and I'm like, just lab. I've popped it in the chat correctly, I think. Yeah, no, what an incredible team. And I feel like it comes back to like what you're saying is a lot of times what we talk about in my department. I have an incredibly hardworking, and just we have a lot of hard conversations in my department, and it's like this weird, like amazing situation in a lot of ways. And we talk often about being collegial versus being congenial. And I know obviously you're in Chicago. I grew up 90 miles west of you. It was Bulls territory, 3 championships. Jordan left, did some other stuff, played another sport, came back, won 3 more. Like that was the 90s, maybe. Like
yes.
And I often think back to that Bulls team or the 1992 Dream Team in basketball. If you're familiar with basketball at all, it's like those teams are not just going like, oh, hey, Scotty, if you could just like not miss your free throws.
Right.
No, they're like in each other's face, like, get your crap together, dude. Like good teams push each other. And my department often talks when we're having uncomfortable conversations about how are we being collegial or are we being congenial? Because congenial is like, good morning, Rebecca. How are you? No, it's fine. I didn't want to. But collegial is like, okay, we got to talk like about this quiz. This is like, I love that you shared it. It's too much, or whatever. And being able to be honest. And I think the same goes for boards. In reviewing things and being able to share very personal opinions, and like you said, maybe even disagree. What do you do with that? Does the board, Martha has a couple of questions that are like very similar. One is, will LLLAB offer a list of recommended texts? So maybe not just even texts that have been reviewed, but like recommended texts. And how do you all choose books to review?
Okay. So as far as the recommended texts, I am not sure if that is something that we are going to do. And, again, that's something that I can discuss with the board. And the reason why I say that is because we really want to make sure that we're being, objective in a sense, so that it's just, we're here to review the content. And based on what we provide, based on our review and, our rubric and, what we've discussed, this is what we found. If you want to read it with your class, fine. If not, and if you think our review sucks for whatever reason, then, don't. So, but Martha, that's an excellent question. That's something that I can bring up. And see, maybe that's something we will consider, but at this point, I'm not quite sure, but I can ask.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, because you choose books, how do you guys choose books to review? Is there any like system behind that or any procedure?
So there was a list, and I'm sorry to say, I don't remember where the list came from. I believe it was a list of language learner literature books. So all of like the CI readers, things like that. So we're starting with that particular list. So there's a lot of different authors. Like we've reviewed a book by Bill Van Patten. We've also reviewed books by Myra Cannon, and then like a couple of others as well. But there was some sort of a list that another teacher author, i.e. consultant, had. And I'm just saying this, I'm not, being like, but because I don't remember where the list came from.
Don't remember.
Like literally, I don't remember. And so we're following, that particular list.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I remember somebody like Karen Rowan or somebody put out like a master list, and it was like several different publishers, several different something. And it was like, and I know people also have these documents that have like levels and language, like incredibly detailed. And it's like, I never save them. I'm like, wait, hold on.
Right.
Can I get back to okay, you said this one was good for, and then somebody says, what Spanish novel is good for level 1? I'm like, damn, somebody's done that somewhere, but I can never find it. And then I go through it all again. I know a couple things came out for me, like there were like conversations happening wherever they happen, out in the ether, out in like the Twitter sphere or wherever, that really made me reflect, see, the last summer or 2 summers ago, about my own library, because like, truth be told, you get hella deals at conferences. So when you go to like the booth during the exhibit, you had your crusty bagel, you had your room temperature coffee, free. You did.
Oh, I missed that.
Right? I miss it so hard.
I miss it.
We're all meeting. We're all gonna be like, hi, like
I know,
vaccinated, hugging, 2 bagels.
Yes.
I'm gonna be like stuffing. I'm gonna be wearing my best out prom dress, 3 bagels in my hand, and a latte. Okay, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna live my best life at conferences. Please make it happen. Actful 2020 or
yes,
whatever, in 2021, whatever year. But I can remember like that conversation coming out, like, have you read all the things in your library? And I'm thinking back to conferences where I'm like, hell no, I haven't, because I'm terrible. And I get my crusty muffin, I get my coffee, I hobble over to like, and I've got like the 2 bags and whatever. I can't carry any more things, but I buy things. And they have like the different vendor tables will have novels for like $1 a piece, like buy 30 and they're $2, or buy a class set. And so I buy 40. So I've done that a couple of times, and just with my own money, and I just ignore my husband when I get home, whatever. And then that came out last summer, a couple summers ago, where it was like, have you read everything? And I'm like, no, who has time to do that? Like, I just, which is terrible, because it's like, if it's like a free and voluntary reading library, it's like, just read, children, it'll be fine. But right. And they're hiding their phone in the book, whatever. It's fine. We've all come to terms with it. But like, what's actually in our libraries, and what are we supposed to do when we've paid our own money and then we find something problematic, or we're like, ooh, like that might be, I don't know. Has that come up in conversation at all of that investment piece?
Right. I know. I think I remember the few summers back that you were talking about, and I'm reminded of the hashtag World Language Audit. There were a few teachers that on Twitter that started that particular initiative, which really supported and helped open up the idea for the board. And I will say you are correct on that, because I know for me, years ago, I don't know, years ago. Yes. Years ago. Everything is like years ago. Years ago. When I was transitioning to a more so proficiency oriented, type of curriculum, and really getting into comprehensible input, I would be so excited just to find books. Like, oh, great, we can teach you this book. Let's just do this book. Yeah, like literally. And so I really didn't realize like, oh, maybe I should actually like read what's in there and just kind
Mm,
of like decide whether or not
yeah.
this is something I want to share, you know, with my students. And, and I even think about pictures too. I mean,
Yep. Mm,
that representation piece, like, what are the pictures, looking like? What do they look like? I don't know. Is it a type of story where, it's inclusive of, everyone, or is it a type of story where, okay, there is a central character, but are there some undertones here? Are there some biases, some stereotypes? So, and I really want to say I really started looking at that and thinking about it maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like back, just really
yeah.
like getting into it. Um, and that's the thing, because it's like you learn, unlearn,
Yeah.
and you grow. Because I get it. It's like we pay, all this money either through, school funding or either out of our own pocket. And we're like, hey, I'm going to set up a library. And then you learn and educate yourself on some new things. And then it's like, ooh, okay, well,
Mm,
I don't know if I want to read that.
right.
There was one particular book that I had a sixth grade student ask me about, and she's just like, perfect, are we going to read this book? Because apparently this book was purchased the year before for this year.
Mm,
So I'm the new, newbie teacher in the department of the
right.
school. And I kindly and politely had to tell her, I said, you know what, we are not going to be reading that book this year. And it was just one of those, we're going to choose something else to read. There are a lot of different, stereotypes that are going on in that book. And I want to make sure that what we are reading is equitable, and that is also going to be, beneficial, to you all in terms of what we're reading.
Yeah.
So, um, so, and it was even something that I shared with, my department chair, because I think I found out that it was like a tradition where they read this book every spring, because there's Chinese
Right.
taught at the school, there's Latin and there's French and then there's Spanish. And so I just said, I'm like, I'm really not comfortable reading this book. Like,
Mm.
and blissfully, she just said, you know what, Kia, like, you're not the only teacher that has said that.
Oh,
So yeah,
well, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, not
yeah, which is
awesome, but
awesome.
like, you're like, thank you. Like,
Yeah, because I'm like,
I don't want to rock the boat, but also rock, rock. Like,
yeah, like,
yeah. Eat, eat. I just want to like shove the boat a little bit, but
right,
I
just
don't
a
want
little
to
bit.
capsize it. But like, yeah, no, 100%. Myra and Martha had both mentioned in the chat too, like, sometimes like having issues with a text because the spot it puts us in is like, oh crap, what do I use now? Because especially if you've the levels of nuance. A, if
Yeah,
I bought it with my own money and now I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do? B,
right.
like if that's what we do for unit 2, okay, not only am I pissed about the money, but like now also like, what do I teach? Like this is what everything's based on. Maybe finding those issues in the text, as part of that lesson, at least
Yes.
just to like have something to use. It makes me think of the story that I use for travel that I used 2 weeks ago. As I was reading it this year, I was like, I use the story and I love Bryce Hedstrom. I don't think he would mind me saying this. It's a Bryce Hedstrom story. Like, he's great. I love his stuff. But like we do with anything when we evaluate stuff, I was reading it and I was like, I don't love that this is like a high maintenance woman who
Mm.
like wants like a rich man in Cancun and she wants to go on a vacation and like a sugar daddy basically. And then like her biggest suitcase is for makeup. Like it has all these details that I'm like, we could switch this thing around and make it like a super bougie dude. And then like he's looking for like that would be kind of fun because I had some girls go like, "Ooh, la mujer es terrible." I'm like, "Yeah, she is, but like also I hate." Like some of the character flaws felt kind of messy for me because I was reflecting like in a different way, even just using it this year and not having students. I mean, because my students in person don't say anything, and neither do my Zoom. It's just silence all the time, and so like not having the reactions in person, I was like, oh, like it was just me like out loud telling the story. And I was like, this hits kind of differently when
Yeah.
you're just like stuck alone with the plot line. And I kind of don't love the like kind of sexist trope that it could be, I don't know, perceived as continuing. I don't know. There's just something about like, oh, and she flies down there and she has all these suitcases and she walks up and she has all her makeup. Like, can we not?
Yeah.
Like, can we
Yeah.
not? Let's not do that. And
Yeah.
so it's yeah, interesting kind of pointing out some of those flaws. So this year I did that because I was like, I've always said she's awful, but like also what do we do? So I think that's you know, it's interesting if we're critiquing like a text, like a plot point or a character, or like Myra said in the chat too, like about a character. I don't like the character's viewpoint. My response, so why is that character the villain? Or why is that person like, these are things that really happen. Kelly's name is in the Zoom guajeros because because I never remember this word. Martha's like, you're so embarrassing.
I'm looking at that.
Girl, because I never remember this word. And it's a lesson I bought several years ago and I used for a couple of years about the guajeros, like the children in Guatemala that live in the garbage. And I bought it from a really well-known vendor who makes beautiful materials, whatever. But this story, the problem is not the text. The problem was how I used the text. I use it completely in isolation, or used it completely in isolation. And it just portrays like brown Guatemalan children, poor but happy, you know, and that kind of thing. It's like, oh my God. And we never go back to Guatemala. And it wasn't until a colleague said, do you ever like bring up the nice parts of Guatemala? I was like, no, we never talk about Guatemala. Like, so all they've seen of Guatemala is children who live in the garbage. Like, get it together. But like you said, we buy these things, or we're like, oh, this would be perfect for this, and that's no excuse, but like I've done it. I'm saying for me, like, oh, this PDF will be, thank God we have a reading with questions, you know, like, thank God, I'll buy it, take my money, $5. And then you realize later, like, ugh, maybe not great, you know. Have you seen with your own materials and with evaluating, have you seen kind of a progression in your perspective, like on how you're doing that same kind of reflection of like, ooh, that didn't age well, or I don't love that particular resource anymore?
Yes, I have. I know last year we were reading a book. I was reading a book with my 7th graders, and we kind of saw some things where the character was bad, and he was always getting in trouble and very mischievous. And I was kind of thinking like, I'm like, let's see how long we can kind of hang on to this book. But then the really cool thing about it was that my students at the time were just like, yeah, you know, they're just like, Maestro London, we're just noticing that he's just always getting in trouble. And it just kind of looks like, you know, there's like the stereotype where little boys are doing mischievous things. And it was just like, they picked up on it right away. And so I said, you know what, you are absolutely, you know, correct in this. And I want to say, I think what happened is that what I decided to do with my students, you know, they were enjoying it, and they felt that what they were reading, it was very comprehensible with them, for them, which was fine. But in light of just the feedback I was getting as we were reading it, I decided to just kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to stop here, and then we're going to transition to, you know, something else. And so, and they, you know, they didn't have an issue with it. And so, and that's when I'm sorry, I'm looking at Joseph's comment. Love this TED Talk. Thank you. And so we continued on, and right now, short stories have kind of been like my jam, and I've been, you know, involved in a lot of short stories and creating and writing my own. So, which is nice because I can kind of build up my FVR library for my students the way, you know, that I want it to be. And I mean, of course, I've got a number of different things from different authors, but I'm very selective in terms of my focus for my students is really culture and I feel
Right.
like, okay, yeah, you can read about, a kid that's, in school and they're doing this or whatever the case is.
Right.
But I really want my students to get immersed in different cultures pertaining to the target language. So I try to select a lot of material when it comes to things like that. Like, for example, and I think Myra's here.
Mhm.
Our sixth grade, we're reading El Escape Cubano. And they are really enjoying it. And I am enjoying it. And one of the many reasons why I'm enjoying it is because Cuba, like, dude, that's my country. So, so I'm able to bring in a lot of my experience and talk about a lot of different things. And they've been exposed to just, Afro-Cubans and just, all sorts of different people. And we're really getting into conversations about family dynamics and, just as far as, just certain challenges and things like that. So it's been great. But for right now, my, focus is on, culture, just really enriching them with, culture in any way that I can interweave that in with the curriculum.
Absolutely. Well, and I think I was reading over a couple things recently, and it's a long story, but they were different like interview type questions for language teachers. And I was like, oh, interesting. One of them said, how do you incorporate culture into language? And I thought, man, do we get that question wrong? Because you look at the definition of incorporate and it's like to make, part of the whole. How do we incorporate language into like from culture, like start with culture. And then how are we, I think exactly as you're saying. And I've learned, like you mentioned, Myra, I've learned incredible amounts from novels like that, where I'm just like kind of reading over things for my students. I'm like, I didn't know that happened, and it's like based on, I'm like, holy crap, like this is, it's interesting, but then also, oh yeah, language learning happens, like learning happens and then language learning happens. Do you feel like, and let me know if this is too personal too, do you feel like, because you write some of your own text, some of the other board members write their own text. Is it possible to like be objective as like an author, or do you have a hard time being objective or non-subjective with like evaluating text since you create your own? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's a good question. We've received that, question before. The way we have it set up is that if someone is reviewing a book and that book is written by them, they can't review that book.
Okay.
And so then when we bring it to the full board after we meet within our group or pair, they can actually like leave the meeting briefly while we discuss and review the book. So there is, like a check and balance for that. But then again, the perspectives as we get in the conversations, like, they fly, and opinions fly. And it's like, well, no, but what about, and so there's always a fresh perspective that's being brought to the table of like, hey, well, that person over there might actually interpret it this way. So this is why you need to, keep an open mind here when it comes to this situation.
Sure.
So that's really how we handle it. That they're not allowed to review their own book. So
is it possible? And now you got me thinking too, like, yeah, like reviewing your own, can you imagine?
Yeah.
5 out of 5 stars. Like,
right.
This one is perfect. I'll just type it myself, guys. Like,
right.
Never, this is the best thing I've ever added to the classic. Like, okay, it's a 47-page reader. Stop it. Like, whatever. Put it up next to, that's what Kelly said. That could get super awkward at the board meeting. Hey, sorry, none of us liked your book. So bad news. This sucks. No. Leave the room first. Terrible. No. Yeah, that would be really hard. But again, it's like lesson plans. How many times do we nod in the meeting? We're like, on course teams, like I have a course team of 5, and it's like, yeah, this quiz, absolutely. And then you get it back in your room and you're like, edit, like stupid,
yes.
terrible. hate. It's like the Grinch. Wasn't the Grinch like hate, like as he was like,
oh my gosh. Yes.
That's how I feel like sometimes I'm like, hate this section. I love you, but don't love this, which is an important separation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Are there ever any discussions, or I guess if there are, which I would assume there are, kind of how do they go about, I know you mentioned like hashtag own voices and like authorship and authenticity. Like, what are kind of, how do those, what comes out of those, or like what's the goal with those? And can we actually write authentically or appropriately, I guess maybe is the word, outside of our own experience? And I say this as a person who like doesn't create, I don't write. So like, I literally don't know.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I know that that's, I don't want to say it's been, a bit of a controversial, topic in a sense, but with own voices, and I can't really speak too much to it because I know, I'm sorry, I'm confusing something else. Anyway, but with, I'm so sorry.
Listen,
With own voice,
it's
I'm like brain. Yes, I'm like, wait, no. Yeah, but what I will say is that I don't want to say we, but I think it's wonderful, especially if you are, if you do want to write something, and you want to bring awareness from a certain community or a group of people that has been, underrepresented. Yeah. I think, I think it's wonderful to be able to do that. However, what I will say to that is that sometimes when there is a writer that is writing about a certain culture or either a certain group of people that are often underrepresented, they don't get it right all the time, and so that's really the challenge, per se, which is why that own voices is, really, really important. Because if you have someone that's writing from that community or either has the same shared identity, then their perspective and the narrative that they're writing is going to be completely different. And it's going to be represented of that particular culture or group. And not to say the other writer or author that is not a part of that culture or does not share that identity.
Sure.
Not to say that, their narrative is not necessarily, is not, awful. But I think with that, you have to be very, very careful, because what has happened is that there are a lot of books that have been written, and with that in mind, there are stereotypes and biases. There are stereotypical, undertones and biases and different things like that are, in the content of those particular books. And I know we've seen that from writers that are not necessarily from that particular community and or even have that shared identity. I think that, and this is me personally, I think that it can be used as a growing, a learning point as well. I know for me personally, I'm not going to say, well, no, you can't write about that. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to tell you do that. However, what I will say is that, just be mindful of just the narrative that you're choosing to create. Make sure you're doing, the amount of research that you need to do, on that particular narrative. So that's really the challenge, with that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, when people, want to write creatively, that's got to be part of the thing is, okay, well, how creatively, like how creative are you getting? And are you having other people vet this particular book? Are you, just like you would native speakers for the language, are you having other people read it and go, don't do that thing? Like this thing right here,
like,
yeah, don't say that. Like you call out, Uncle Hal at Thanksgiving, like, we don't say that anymore. Okay, thank you. Never really should have. So
Uncle Hal.
Uncle Hal. Luckily, not a person I have. Mine was Uncle Mickey. I don't know if that's a better word, but like Uncle Mickey would say stuff at Thanksgiving and you were like, like, I know you're like old enough to know Jesus personally, but like, not okay. Not an excuse. You gotta stop saying stuff like that. So it's that kind of thing. Like as a non-native speaker teacher,
Yeah.
I think about that all the time in, slang or like whatever it is I'm teaching. I'm like constantly going, God, first of all, are these the right words? And then second of all, like, who is this even, like, who can I even speak to? And we start questioning, like, because what can we as non-native speakers refer to? Study abroad experience, the culture that we intake on if we're watching shows in Netflix, if we're, whatever, like however we're taking in culture and input as teachers, but lifelong learners. It's like constant storytelling because it's the thing I've lived, or been to a place. AC Quintero was on these all like blur together. I'm like, Blur's Day. What day is it? Blur's Day.
I know, man.
2 weeks ago, whatever, recently, this year. And she mentioned that same thing about like being able to write, about certain experiences, but then also some of it then is creative writing, and you just get enough perspectives that you feel secure and that you wrote about that thing the best you could, and that you consulted, the most people you could, and you did it justice in the best way possible. And I think that's important because I think we could easily say the same thing about like where you live now. Again, I grew up 90 miles west. We've had maybe, a city experience versus a middle of nowhere experience, or a this versus this. Like my Illinois might be very different from your Illinois. Who knows? Like we would have to talk about those things. And I think that's got to be part of a writer's process. I don't know. As a person who doesn't write, I would think especially if you're a non-native speaker teacher, and it also seems like it would be personal to your student population. Like if you've got students who maybe don't have a lot of travel experience, maybe don't get out, maybe do have a lot of stereotypes that they're seeing or whatever, I feel like that would be really challenging to write texts that like invite them in, question some of maybe their ignorance, but also like keep them comfortable enough to keep learning language. I don't mean that to sound like accommodating, but I know some authors have said in the last couple of years in those conversations of like, listen, my students were like rural, middle of nowhere. I needed to find something that was comprehensible. So I wrote that, whatever, but like, I know better now and I'm doing better. And I think that's got to be a part of the equation too. Like if as an author, like who are you writing for? If you're just starting out like grassroots in your classroom, and then what's your own experience? But language is so personal. I don't know if you found a writer like questioning all of that.
Yes. It's a very personal. And, and again, it starts with, as you said, it starts with like that motive, it's like, again, why are you choosing, to write what it is that you're writing, and, for who? And I know for me personally, lately I've been doing a lot of research with, about Equatorial Guinea. And I'm like fascinated, by that particular country. And I want to say somebody just mentioned sociolinguistics, which reminds me, when I was in my master's program for linguistics, I actually did like a whole report on like that particular country. And it had something to do with the way the Spanish was like spoken. And now I can't find the report. But anyway, aside from that, but and I started with that. I have started with that particular country because I haven't, I don't see it a lot in curriculums.
Right.
I don't see it a lot in curriculums, and, maybe it's mentioned like here and there. But that's the focus right now. And can I talk about Spain? Yeah, of course I can talk about Spain. I know we're talking about Spain right now with one of the books we're reading, with 5th grade. But again, my motive and my purpose is to bring awareness to that particular community, that is not, being represented as much as it should be in terms of, what's going on within the world language classroom. So
Well, and I wonder,
yeah.
like, so much of language is so personal. Like, it's
Mhm.
our, how we grade, how we plan, what resources we use, always come back to our own language proficiency, our
Mhm.
self-confidence in said language proficiency, how we learned, like how we were taught, if we studied abroad or if we've ever lived, abroad or done any kind of experiential type thing. And
Mhm.
travel, like all of these things like shape our identity. And as Kevin said in the chat, like everything has to do with identity
Yeah.
and all of those things that we relate with.
Mhm.
And so that's, yeah, you're exactly right. It's like the textbooks and other things will go like, let's talk about Puerto Rico and then Cuba and then the Dominican and Spain. And then when kids go, what kind of Spanish are we learning here? Which they ask all the time
Right.
because their parents have said, what kind of, and you're like, I don't know. Like the Spanish,
Right.
so
I'm
like
like,
hodgepodge of Spanish. Like I feel like I'm like a mutt of Spanish, because I'm like,
uh-huh.
well, I'll say platicar, but then I'll say like medias, like those, whatever. And so I think that's something we've got to also reflect on. Like, and Kelly said in the chat, like this has come up several times in the chat, like that language has so much baggage.
Yeah.
Like, we have just steamer trunks of baggage when we come in to teach language because we're bringing all that we are, all that we think kids should be, why we think they should appreciate this thing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like
Yeah.
agendas upon agendas that we might not even see. And so I know, like you said, I know I've gravitated towards text that I'm like, oh, this will be great with this theme or this unit. And I haven't always thought about like this place that we never freaking talk about, like
Mhm.
Equatorial Guinea. Why are we, come on, like, why are we not doing that? But we're not doing that because there's not stuff, like,
Mhm.
and so we need for there to be stuff, or we need to seek
Mhm.
out stuff. It's not that there isn't stuff, but like we need to make it, find it, all that kind of thing. Yeah, which is, I don't know. It's just hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard, and it's a lot. And then you go, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, and sometimes those conversations happen at a webinar or at a conference or on some, in some time of the school year where you're like, I can't fit in one more thing.
Mhm.
And that's no excuse.
Yeah.
But it's just like, we already had a plan. I have the scope and sequence. we're already paced out. I can't change it now, which is silly. But like that's
Right.
and
Right.
problematic. But that's such a teacher mindset of like, but what are
Right.
we gonna do? I
Yeah.
have one last question for you.
Yeah.
How do we I don't know, how do we get more authors authoring texts from like different perspectives, different places, different, like how can we just as a profession elevate people to write in ways that are authentic in like for texts that we don't currently have available, like an author from Equatorial Guinea. Is there, I don't know, does that ever come up on the board as like a conversation piece?
That hasn't come up on the board as a conversation piece, but I will say that has come up in a conversation that I did have like with another author.
Sure.
And the thing about it is that there are people out there.
Yeah,
There are people
like,
out there,
yeah,
and
like, how do we call in one
I know, and it's really, I mean, it's really a matter of, amplifying their voice and, bringing awareness to just like who those people are. And I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question, but I mean, that's an excellent question. And that is something that I can tell you personally that I am working on.
Yeah.
To just bring more, I can't even think of the word now, but amplifying,
like recruitment,
right?
You
Yeah.
like, it's like, how do you like recruit people? Like, hey, you should do a thing, and you just hope that they say yes, right? Or like whatever. Like, are you interested? You could be good at this. I feel like it's hidden sometimes.
Yes.
Or I guess what I've seen, it's almost like, again, we come back to the professional development. We've come full circle. There are so many things that are pay to play. And so as one form of gatekeeping that I think we have many forms of gatekeeping in our profession. And it seems to me sometimes we overcomplicate that authorship process, not the process of the authoring itself, but just like just starting and like making it available, even though it's 2021 and there are like self-publishing options, like there are ways you can do a lot of things that I wonder if sometimes we don't gatekeep behind the guise of training. Like, oh, Joe, you're from Joe, I'm gonna make this up. Joe, where are you from? Uruguay. There you go. You're welcome. I know you're from not there. But you're from Uruguay and like you would have an incredible perspective. We would love for you to write, you know, da 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 da. But unfortunately, you're not trained in, you know, whatever. And like that's not a thing. Like
yeah. And I'm just gonna keep it real. I noticed that in certain circles, and my attitude is pretty much, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do it myself.
right.
Period. End of discussion. So, and again, that's another form of gatekeeping, and I don't quite understand that. I'm just kind of like, I don't quite understand that. But what I do know is that for, you know, if this is something that, you know, a teacher that is passionate about in terms of writing, and if they're noticing that, hey, we're missing this particular material, or either, hey, I know someone either from this community or either from this country, let me see if I can reach out, and go for it. You know, go for it.
Right.
And I mean, because quiet as it's kept, it's like, I cannot do everything.
Right.
I can't do everything. I'm already doing too much. So I'm just like, I can't do everything. I can't, you know, we all cannot represent everything, you know? So, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, go for it. If you know, you have that access, and if you know that, you know, you're able to reach out to someone, and if you're, you know, truly passionate about starting to write, and, you know, and if you do want some guidance, you know, completely, you know, reach out to people that you know, that you feel comfortable with, like, hey, I'm thinking about writing this and writing that. So that's my personal opinion about, I need to be trained, and
right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen that conversation come up. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, I don't think. I'm like, is there a training? I don't. Well, also, I'm also the person that got my first teaching job. They asked me at a job fair, "Are you trained in TPRS?" And I was like, "Yeah." I wasn't. I didn't know. I knew what it meant. So when they said, "Are you trained?" I was like, obviously, no. I like, got the job. It was great. So I mean, that like that's my mindset of like, whatever, training schmaining, like
and you know, and it's just like, and I, you know, and I also feel like, you know, for some people, you know, hey, if you do want if you feel that you need a certain training like that to just kind of help you get started, or you know, wherever you're at, fine, you know, but for some of us, it's like, no, okay,
I'm good.
I'm good.
Right.
I got the book.
Be like
my book.
I have some ideas. I'll type them. Like if like if that's like if that shouldn't be the starting point, maybe that's the honing point of like, hey, I got this. How can I make this more comprehensible or whatever? Because maybe, you know, they might have the perspective, but obviously maybe no like education experience. To me, it's like, oh, gotcha. Let me, you know, like you said, support you and model and whatever. Martha mentioned too in the chat, which is a little too personal. Martha, I feel like seen, and I feel attacked. But she said exactly what I was saying about that Guajeros text, like, and what we said at the beginning. Often the CI novels are convenient, and unless like I love, Kelly mentioned in the chat as well, like Myra's, for example, are wrapped in history and culture. But if you're looking for a storyline, sometimes some of them are just convenient, you know, and we as teachers, once that school year starts, we go like August 1, like 100 miles an hour until Memorial Day. And then like, again, not a reason, not an excuse, but a reason. And often the convenience can turn problematic. I think that's like, like Martha, you got to tweet that out, because that's what we have to look at. Are we teacher centering our own comfort and convenience? I think convenience is part of comfort, not just comfort of like, I don't want to talk about the things, but like, got this PDF. It already came with a quiz. I'm here for it. You know, like, let's talk about the Guajeros. and, whatever.
Yes.
And then Myra mentioned too, like for a lot of teachers, so if we're like, oh, this is, this novel is now problematic. Well, what's my alternative? Like a major textbook that also might not be checking all my boxes. So many teachers are caught between the money, like curriculum, like all of these different pressure, like rock and a hard place type of things. And then you've got these things that are like, ditch the textbook, whatever. And it's like, okay, but not if it's the only thing you have. Like,
it's like, okay, yeah. But
right. If you're like Allison Weinhold is like the most amazing success story because she's in like Dunkerton, Iowa, which I have family in Dunkerton, Iowa. There's like 3 stoplights. Okay. And she is a Department of One. She does Mis Clases Locas. If you guys don't know her, like she's incredible. She's like Department of One, who's like exploded with amazing creativity. She's incredible. But like, if she weren't her, or if she were, and she talks about this when she was a younger teacher, like when she was like straight out of college, whatever, it was like page 37. Oh, look, it's tomorrow, page 38. And tomorrow, guys, don't get excited. It's going to be page 39. Like, and that was just, if that's all you have, that's all you have. And it's so hard to build a library that you feel good about and you're proud of and that you invested in, maybe literally, and also teach have a repertoire of materials and resources that you feel are equitable, appropriate, and that also kind of cover your curriculum, like your topics. I don't know if that's ever possible. Do you? I feel like we should be constantly revising.
Yeah, it's a constant growth. I mean, you constantly have to look, you constantly have to revise. I mean, I mean, honestly, I know for me, I'm the type of teacher, I never look at my lesson plans from the year before.
Same.
I don't.
They're not there.
I don't do, they're just no, because I want to change things and it might be different. And maybe I've got a different group of students, or maybe, I want to focus on this and we didn't really do too much of this. So it's like, you're always going to be looking, you're always going to be changing, maybe you do take, this particular book out and maybe it's like, okay, well, this might not be the best book I want to use with my class, but maybe I could use, this particular page as like a short story.
That's it.
And we discuss and we talk about it, or act or do whatever it is you want to do, or play running dictation, whatever. And that's it. So, and it just, you grow and it just, it keeps going. Cause I'm sure I will look back at this moment that we are all in right now, when we get through all of this. And as we head to September, not as we had, but we're not there yet. But anyway, when we are in September, and I'm going to be like, yeah, why did I do that like that? Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe do it another way. Yeah. So, it's a constant, revamping, revising.
Absolutely. Well, and Kevin just mentioned too, like Kelly and Myra were saying in the chat, like, textbooks do like little things, but then they'll have like an entire food unit on like American food, like, or like US, I should say, United States in food. And it's like, okay, this is not helpful, so it's like, I see all of our materials that we have available to us kind of as a buffet. You don't eat everything at the buffet. Ideally, I'm working on it. You can make it a little bit of everything, but you don't go all into all of it. Maybe a little rice, a little meat, little potatoes, whatever. But I just don't think, with all the things we have available and teachers creating beautiful materials that are equitable and incredible and available and informed, it's like, yeah, okay, I will pay $5 for, those non-binary pronoun posters. I will pay, like, sure, take my money like all day. But I think we're getting a little bit more agency and like, kind of that inner, like, we're checking stuff as we probably should have been the first time. But, life, again, not an excuse, but we're just like, it's just a lot to think about and process all the time, especially if you've never had some of those conversations. Kevin mentioned in the chat, like, a great teacher going through the book is still better than a poor teacher using optimum materials. And I think that's really profound. Like, you can
Yes.
use some pretty like boring stuff, which is how I feel this year. Like, everyone's still bored. Great. Boring is predictable and consistent to me. So we'll just keep playing Gimkit. Everything's fine, everybody.
Right. Right.
And you know what we do on Wednesdays. God, get out of here. Can it just be Memorial Day? Get me out of here. But I think, like what's, like he said in the chat, then what is the role of the teacher? So how do we reconcile our own efficacy with the materials that we have available, with the things that we know, with our identity, with our, there's a lot. We constantly, it's just like what's the word? Like a planet, like kind of like a planetary thing that we just have to keep kind of evolving and revolving, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna give another second for the chat to see if we have any last questions. Yeah, Kevin just mentioned too, like maybe teachers need to be trained to incorporate more inclusive materials. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really trained to incorporate, but maybe trained to create. I don't know. Maybe that goes back to the authorship and
yeah. Yeah. I think, and I actually think that's a good idea. I mean, even if there was something where teachers are trained to, create inclusive material, I think it's wonderful because at least we would be able to discuss and talk about, certain themes that should be in your book,
Yep. Absolutely.
So I think that would be helpful.
Yep.
I think
Well,
that
and
definitely would be helpful.
it removes some of the obstacles that go, oh, you have to be affiliated with this before you can.
Right.
Why? Like I can
like
I can put a terrible PDF that's super problematic on Teachers Pay Teachers in 30 seconds, like to upload. And it's like, but I can't, come on. Like there are more options out there now maybe than ever before, which probably makes a lot of things tricky. Yeah. Like Myra, I read your mind. Like now we have instant TPT that's like, boop, I need this. Boop, I need this. And it feeds that like Pavlov's dog kind of thing of like, oh, good, the food unit, great. Click, download. Now I have my lesson instead of what is the message of my lesson? Like, let's
right
there.
Right. Right. And that's important. It goes back to that motive, like, why am I teaching this? And why am I using it? What do I want my students to be able to get out of this particular
it's like
experience?
a lot of the circumstances around teaching actually undermine good teaching. Like you get so swamped and so whatever that it's like backward design. Like don't forget that. Don't forget personalized, but we're just like in a washing machine all the time, like just swirling. You had report card comments today. I had them yesterday/today, but not in detail of yours. So it's just a lot.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope we've gone into like 15 minutes of after party. I'm so sorry, but
after party.
we could talk. This is when the fun start. No, I'm kidding. It was all fun. My floating head and hands.
Are so funny.
Right. It's just black shirt life forever, apparently. This is what I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Whatever. I know. I could pick a gray one, but it's too late. I'm like, I already had the background. Thank you so much. I dropped in your website and then also the board's website. I also threw in like ICTFL's website just for funsies. Cool. And also the Danger of a Single Story video, which I think is really powerful. And I think that's it. Is there anything else you kind of want to end with or any other things you want us to share that you think would be valuable?
I don't know. I don't think so. I guess my final words would be, depending on, where you're at in your, journey of teaching, just never stop examining and re-examining like what you have in your curriculum and continue to make those changes, for the sake of your students. And I know it is definitely a lot. I think for me, just the way that I am teaching right now, sure, it'd be so much easier for me to just pick up a textbook and hey, here you go. All right, let's go. But I know that, again, like what you said earlier, Meredith, about, pushing past the comfort zone, You know, it's like when we get into that uncomfortable place, that's when we grow, you know, and that's when we become great and grow. So, you know, keep pushing, keep asking questions, keep connecting, keep collaborating. And hey, if you have something on your heart, on your mind that you want to write about, go ahead and get started. And yeah, just, you know, start from there. At least that's how I started. I started out with a little short story about Omar with my kids, and they loved it. And I was like, let's see. And then it turned into all this. So yeah.
Well, heck yeah. And that's exactly it. It's like, it just comes back to the Nike thing, right? Just do it. Like, just do it. Just do the damn thing. Like, start it like we do anything, you know? I think a lot of times we glorify less, and I'm not sure why we do that. We say things like, oh, Kia works tirelessly. Oh, she makes it look effortless. And I think at the end of the day, it's okay to look tired, and it's okay to look like you made an effort. So many times in teaching, we want like a silver bullet. We want a how-to. We want like, show me exactly what you did and it'll work great. But we can't do that. We all have all different students, all different personal lives, all different, like, everything. And there's no recipe, formula, whatever. To make it look like less, it's gonna be work. Like, it's gonna be sitting down and taking, like you said, your last year's lesson plans and going like, all right, let's face the monster. Like, let's see what we did. And I think that's important. And I think when you look around, and then you know, whose stories are we telling is important. Whose stories are we excluding?
Right. That
like
one too.
You're gonna make me. I like literally my notebook just says Equatorial Guinea, like in capital letters. I'm like, I've got to know more about this place. Because if you get, as a teacher, if you gave me a multiple choice test right now, multiple choice, if I had choices, I would fail it on that country. I would fail it. I don't know anything. So not okay. That's my homework. Thank you. And I'm so thankful for your work. I'm so thankful for everything you share in all the places, and obviously your time tonight and just all the things. So thank you from like the bottom of our hearts. And I know in the chat, it's like, oh my God, she's incredible. Like, I know, right? So thank you so much. We super appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. And thank you, everybody. Thank you all so much. This was good.
Yay.
This was really good. So yay.
Report cards. No, I'm kidding. Don't.
Oh my, don't even give me, no, now see, they've been not edited, but they've been proofread. So that's the process. So I have like 20 pages of like report card comments on every single child. Marta's like, oh, that's what we have to do. So now I have to go back tonight. Oh, and by the way, I'm moving tomorrow. So I have to go back tonight, copy and paste, correct, and put it in. I'll do by noon tomorrow. So that has been my week. And
you want like a check down, like a checklist, you know what I mean? Where you're like, he's doing great. Oh, he's kind of rude, but I like him. Oh, he's kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I just want like a drop down menu where I'm like, oh, Kelly Sita works hard, is pleasant. Boop. Next.
Right.
Like,
it is something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, check your email in like 30 minutes, because you're going to get like a little extra something that might help with that energy caffeine level.
Yes.
When you're pasting, moving,
right.
You know, doing your entire life. So give me like half an hour. Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys for attending. So boop, I'll pop all these links in the Wakelet and then upload the recording. Cool. Good times. Yay. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you all too.